So what now? If you took the October SAT or any other SAT recently, or, you took the October SAT this weekend, how do you navigate what exactly to do now? How do you predict how you performed, and how is that going to impact your preparation either for the next SAT or that you're going to decide to not prepare at all? So I'm going to explain exactly what I did and how that was actually the wrong move and what you should actually do, right? What I did after my first SAT, right? And first, let me explain my prediction. I actually did not like think I did well. I didn't think I did well in reading and grammar. I didn't think I did well, as at least as well as I wanted to, right? And as a result, I actually did nothing, right? And it sounds bad to say, but it's the honest truth. I actually did nothing to improve my score. I literally forgot about the SAT. I had taken it, I believe, as a junior, right? I took the December SAT as a junior. So I realized that, like, okay, I have multiple attempts in the future. I'm not going to make an effort to improve it now. I'm going to focus on it more in the future, right? And as a result, I didn't do anything, and I kind of lost the momentum that I would have had if I had just stuck to it and, potentially taken the March SAT or something, right? And I actually ended up doing way better than what I thought I did, right? I ended up getting, I believe, like a 650 in the reading section, which, I thought I'd done horribly on, right? So that was actually better than what I had thought I did, right? But after my second SAT, right, I ended up getting, I think 50 to 100 points higher. And I realized that I needed to continue this momentum. It was the preparation, because now I had realized exactly what I got wrong and what my mistakes were, and I was able to use that in my preparation, and that made all the difference. So hi, I'm Karthik. I'm going to explain to you, what are you going to do after your SAT? Okay, the first idea is you need to predict your score, and predict in quotations because you can't really predict your score. That's the fundamental idea, right? You can never know exactly what your score is going to be. Even if you feel confident that you've gotten in a certain range, you aren't ultimately sure. So here's how you can roughly predict your score, but keep in mind this prediction can still be wrong. It's this idea that you figure out basically how you feel about the test, right? Whether you felt it was difficult, you felt it was moderately easy, or you felt like it was really easy and you feel confident about the exam, right? This isn't correlate to a score, but basically it correlates to your perception of your score. So let's say you generally score 1400s and you feel like it was moderately easy. That's probably where you scored on the test as well. You felt like it was easy. The exam was easier than, some of your practice tests. You probably scored a little bit higher, but even that is not an accurate display of your score because of the scenario that I just described, where I thought I did a lot worse, but I actually ended up doing better than I thought I did. That was probably because my frame of reference was to, like, the highest of high scores. That's what my goal was, and I wasn't achieving that on my first attempt, right? So it's better to be safe with your score and understand that your prediction might be wrong and you might have not done as well as you thought you did, than to rather lose potentially valuable time to get your score up, right? If you're taking November or December, right? And, I talked about this. I felt very bad about my exam, but I did better than anticipated. But it's not uncommon for that opposite scenario to occur, that you feel good about your exam, but you actually did worse than anticipated, right? So you need to prepare for that fact that you can't really predict your score accurately, but what you can do is it can give you a general guideline of where your exam was, right? If you feel any extreme emotion one end or the other, like you totally bombed it, that's probably more accurate than a light emotion of, like, you don't know exactly how it felt. So you have to ultimately wait for your score, but because you don't want to lose that valuable time, you shouldn't quit preparation. You lose your momentum and you lose the habits of practicing. You lose, like, the general thoughts of practicing. Like, if you are learning how to play an instrument and you just suddenly stop and then resume after like 3 to 4 weeks, you're obviously not going to be as good as when you started. And that time in between was not the only thing you lost. You also have to recoup the lost skill from not doing it in that duration of time. So you lose the amount of time that you could have worked and a little bit more. And that little bit more is honestly the most valuable part that you want to be able to sustain just by practicing, right? Especially if you're a senior or junior, this is probably essential that you keep practicing. Okay. So because we've established that you should keep practicing, you should take your preparation the same level of seriousness, regardless of how you feel about your test, you need to step it up. I'm going to talk about 3 specific constraints that are essentially every single constraint on the SAT. Because if you have all of these 3 things and you have them dialed down and you have enough time, right, which is technically a 4th constraint, but you have time to implement it, and time could literally be, instead of like you having a long duration, you just utilize your duration better, right? If you're able to have all these three constraints knocked out and you know exactly what to do, you will see an improvement. You will see a significant improvement if you commit to having all three of these aspects perfect, right? So the first one is consistency. And the main idea with that is that you're consistently doing the work without failing. You're doing the work, you're showing up, you're able to commit to doing the work and putting the effort needed, not cheating yourself out of the work and not just showing up, but actually putting in effort on a regular basis, right? An accurate steps / good effort. So what I mean by good effort is not consistency. What I actually mean is doing the right things, right? So accurate steps would be doing the right things based on what your position is, right? So based on your score, based on your level of knowledge about a certain topic, you're doing the right thing to improve it based on what area you're in, and you're not cheating yourself from that. So you're not doing, and that's what I mean by good effort. You're not doing something above or below, and you're actually going through the steps of building a strategy and trying to find new ways to do it instead of just mindlessly doing it and hoping for a better score every time, right? And then accurate practice, just having the right practice materials and knowing the right concepts to learn. Okay, so for consistency, it's this idea that, if we do a bunch of effort in one day, let's say we do 8 hours in one day, that's still going to be half as effective as doing 30 minutes every day for 16 days. And the reason is, you could say like, oh, you're going to be tired at the end of those 8 hours. You're not going to be utilizing those 8 hours good. But there's something about having it as a daily habit that just makes it so much more powerful than doing it all at once, right? And I do feel that's because of the way we learn, right? Learning is so based on this idea that you need rest in between, you need breaks in between, you need patterns and honestly habits, right? If you think about doing anything like going to the gym, like learning to drink more water every single day, reading on a daily basis. We don't get really good at reading, but reading a bunch all in one time. We get really good at reading if we read for a moderate amount on a daily basis over an extremely long period of time, right? That is still going to be way more significant. So it's the consistency that actually gives us progress, not the amount of work that we do. So our focus should actually be more on consistency than the amount of work that we do, right? So number one thing that can actually improve your consistency without any additional effort is an accountability partner, right? When you commit to doing this either with a friend or a parent or a teacher or literally anybody in your life, and you tell them, this is how much I want to do, I'm going to tell you when I do it and how much I did, and you're going to keep me accountable and you're going to motivate me to do it. There's so many people who you can do that with and who you can be their accountability partner as well for anything else, right? This is going to boost how much work you do without having to use any willpower. It's basically going to boost the idea of, you're going to be able to do more work, but you're not going to actually like push yourself to do it because somebody else is going to be pushing you. So it doesn't require any additional effort. The only effort is just finding that person. And that's relatively simple, right? Mindset. And this goes back to the idea of 8 hours versus 30 minutes. Stop focusing on a certain amount per day, right? A lot of people will try to get consistent and they will say, I'm going to do an hour a day. And they do an hour a day for 2 weeks and then quit, right? But even worse than that, they say an hour a day and sometimes they don't even get to an hour a day on the first day. They do like 45 minutes and then quit, right? If you want to actually commit to doing this, right, you need to start small, first of all, to build that daily practice. But on top of that, you should never constrain yourself to a certain amount because doing that is not going to help you improve. The SAT, right, if we think about its effect, let's say its effect is about this much, right, from this hand to this hand, all the way here. But the time that we have to prepare for the SAT is like in between these two fingers. It's right here, right? So we need to squeeze every single bit of that small piece of time because we know the effect it's going to have. So instead of doing an hour a day, 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, instead of focusing on an hour per day, focus on how much can you squeeze into your schedule? How much effort can you put into your schedule? How much effort can you do based on your daily work? And how much can you do more than that, right? How much can you utilize certain things better? How much more efficient can you be with certain things? Increase the amount of time you can prepare for the SAT, not just by the time duration, but by being more efficient. Okay. learn to do the right work. I'm going to quickly summarize the learning, practice, mastery concepts that I've covered in a bunch of other videos. This is not going to be a full guide to it. I recommend going to like how to master reading, how to master grammar. Those videos on my channel are going to be much deeper. But basically, there's this idea that you're either in one of these three stages for any of the sections, right? For reading, there isn't really a learning stage. There is no learning stage. It's just practice and mastery, right? For reading, if you're lacking, a good score, you don't have the score that you want, it's because you need to practice doing the reading sections more. And that means the same exact SAT passages. And you need to just practice those types of passages and those types of questions and build strategies for questions, test them and see if they work, right? That's the idea of practicing. And the way you get better at reading is just doing it again and again and again. That's it. It seems like that is not going to make a difference because you're just repeating the same action, but you're getting a little bit better at analysis every single time you're exposed to it. So the only way that you do better is just by doing it again and again, right? And that's when you achieve mastery, where you are trying to get the last 50 points out, right? You're trying to squeeze that out for reading. Now, but for math and grammar, it's a little different because they're conceptual. So they're based on certain concepts that you need to know. And here's what to do, right? You need to figure out the list of concepts that are tested on the SAT. They're found on the SAT website, but I like Khan Academy's organization of them because they don't just give these vague category names. They actually give the exact skill, and they give lessons on every one of those skills, right? So what you need to do is figure out, for every single math skill, do you know every single mathematical concept, right? And if you don't know it, then you need to actually learn it. So you need to use external resources to watch a video and learn how it's done. If you do know it and you're still getting them wrong, that means you need to practice it, right? You need to take practice problems, go through the easy examples, and hopefully you get them all right, but then progressively increase the difficulty of those examples. So it starts off with like simple variables, then complex variables, and then word problems, and then lengthy diagrams, stuff like that. You need to increase the amount of difficulty that type of question of that specific skill is being done, and that's how you reach mastery, where you know how to do it in any scenario. And Khan Academy does that automatically for you for free. I can't emphasize how much I love that resource for the SAT and how much it helped me when I was preparing, right? This is the idea of doing the right work. Putting in effort is just a matter of building the strategies for these questions, right? So the ways that you improve in the practice stage is by building a strategy that you know works, and then testing the strategy and then making sure it works, right? That's how you get the right solution in terms of figuring out how to progress, right? And the core idea for building strategies is it's very personal. So one strategy isn't going to work for most people, right? So you need to make it yourself. And how you do that is you focus on this one question: why? Why did I make that mistake? Why did I avoid that detail? Right? And once you get the correct answer to that question, you can make a how, right? How can I prevent that from happening next time? How can I make sure that this doesn't happen again? And then test that strategy, make sure it works. If it doesn't work, then you had the wrong why. Though your why wasn't correct, and you need to find the real constraint. Okay. Accurate practice, this is like such a hard concept for some people to understand, but you cannot trust other sources of information for questions. They're not going to be accurate. They're not going to be in the same wording of the SAT. Just trust me when I say that you should not use resources that are outside of College Board official resources unless they're actually like teaching you something, right? So for grammar and math, you can watch videos on the concepts because they're teaching you the concepts. But if you're using practice questions from those sites, they're terrible, right? Because they're not going to be accurate, and you don't know if they're accurate, right? There's some really reputable ones out there, like College Panda is extremely reputable. Erica Meltzer is something that I've also heard very good things about, but I haven't personally tried it. So take that one with a grain of salt. I haven't personally tried it, but I've personally used College Panda, and that's one that's not an official source, but it's very accurate. But it's one of the only ones out there, right? You should use College Board affiliated everything before you even touch those resources. So that's Khan Academy, the SAT Suite Question Bank, which is literally a question bank of like 30,000 questions from all the SATs of past years. Use practice tests and use QASs that have been released online. Those are pretty hard to find now, but if you look on like SAT Reddit and stuff hard enough, you'll be able to find it. Okay. When actually looking for information, right? When you're not looking for practice tests, just information, just make sure the information is actually tested on the exam, right? So accurate practice guarantees that the information is tested on the exam because it's from the official source, right? So the question is going to be based on a concept that is definitely going to be tested, right? If it's from accurate practice. So that's how you know that concept is actually going to be tested on the exam. But if you have questions that aren't from an official source, they might include something that isn't actually official, that isn't going to be tested on the SAT and is just put in this random subset because it's not College Board affiliated, right? That's why, again, I like Khan Academy. It makes clear every single skill that's tested and has examples. So use that first, then use all of the other examples. I highly don't recommend that you focus on anything else. Okay, actionable steps. Commit to actually improving these categories. What I want you to do is this week, pick a category to improve on and commit to improving it, right? That's going to actually get the ball rolling in whatever prep you're trying to achieve, right? And it can literally be the accurate practice one, which is the simplest one to just switch over to, right? Commit to improving on it, and the next week pick a different category. So in 3 weeks, you should have hit all the categories and made at least some small improvement on it. If you want a free SAT consultation and where I can go through any of these things with you or anything that you honestly want to know about the SAT, click the first link in the description and then sign up for the form. And then if you get chosen, we can have a chat and then we can talk about anything that you specifically want to know. And if you're interested in SAT prep or my private community where I have all of these things combined in a place where you can just experience them and have them in the most optimized way possible, also click the link down in the description if you're interested. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you learned something today.